We are in a time when we can control fire. This is from a relatively recent time. A power that destroyed cities for hundreds of years. Control over fire gave humans the ability to keep warm, enclose animals, be somewhat safe in the dark, and clear the land. Fire prolonged human life. Cooking food brought a degree of protection from bacteria and viruses. Primitive agriculture could not be practiced without fire to clean the soil. The use of fire marks one of the most prominent points of distinction between man and animal. Fire is one of the most essential starting points of culture. One of the first forms of communication began with fire, smoke. Baking, pottery making, and melting metals were made possible by it. Fire separated calendars and epochs. Like any technology, it became a technology of war in the wrong hands. Metals were melted down to make tools of war. Fire heated water and steam was created. Steam power paved the way for industry and started life's first energy as we know it today. With the invention of engines, steam power created enormous energy. In his book, Fire and Civilization, Johann Gutzblom argues that man's control over fire sparked the first transformation in human life. From this point of view, it's not a far-fetched statement to say the following. Indeed, the starting point of the human transition from Zoe to bios may be the invention of fire. According to Aristotle, Zoe represents the state of being alive, and animals, plants, nature, and the gods belong to this form. However, at some point in time, bios emerges. Bios is a cultural activity. The control and use of fire can begin the transition from Zoe to bios. Groups gathering around a fire for warmth or protection from wild animals may have produced the first public space of the wild community. The etymology of the word public means open to general observation and publicly disclosed. In this sense, the communities gathered around the fire, telling stories of the past and creating a memory, constitute the first public space. fire is the founder of the first public space. People gathering around the fire and talking have begun to create a history. Fire is always with us in all processes. When art and religion are united, fire is the most prominent cultural phenomenon. The first dance, storytellings, and music were made with fire. When religious ceremonies and art are combined, fire is always with us. There is a widespread belief in hell. Fire and God have never been separated. Remains found in Kenya in 1981 and South Africa in 1988 showed that primitive humans called hominids were using fire in a controlled way 1.42 million years ago. However, the burning of controlled fires began 400,000 years ago. The widespread control of fire by humans was about 125,000 years ago. Still, these dates could be more precise. Fire evolved more or less around these dates. It's yet to be known whether the idea of starting a fire came from rubbing a flint against pyrites or trying to make a hole in a tree. In Neolithic settlements in Europe, and pyrites have been found as well as flame points in primitive societies. Rubbing was the most common method of starting a fire.